All right. Whenever you're ready. I am now taking and reading out of my father's diary the paragraph which reads as follows. These are the things that happened in 20th century Germany. All this, according to the old German proverb, the world will benefit from the German character and conduct. I, too, was taken into custody and arrested in the morning at 6 a.m. by the police. I watched them as they loaded their pistols in front of me, as they remarked that they would be happy to make use of them should I intend to take flight. Thank God that our son was in Cologne at this time. I emptied my pockets and let them take me away. I was taken to the police station where I was asked to surrender my hat and suspenders as well as any other items still in my possession. Picture. This is a picture from my grandparents and my father. This is my father, this is my aunt. These are brothers and sisters. These were my grandparents. And they are sitting here holding a seder, which is given for Passover. But this is this seder plate. And the seder plate has been in our hands since 1710. The person that actually made the seder plate is one of my forefathers by the name of, I think it was Behrend in 1710. It's marked for the date. 1710 is marked right here. Okay. For those people who are going to watch this film, this is called a yacht. It's a very simple object. It's a pointer. And it's being used when we read from the Torah, which is basically the 5 books of Moses, in temples. This particular yacht has a history. On November the 9th, Kristallnacht, when the synagogues in Germany were all burnt and destroyed, the day afterwards, my father went to see if there was anything left of the temple. In the ashes, he saw something shining, and he bent down and picked it up, and it was this yacht. So he put it in his pocket and took it home with him. Years and years and years later, one of my grandchildren became bat mitzvah. And the thought came to me that as much as one dictator tried to eliminate the Jews of Europe, here is a child from a person that escaped the Holocaust and is using this yacht to read her parsha with the idea that you cannot kill a religion. And so when I think about it, I say to myself, if my father was still alive today, he would probably say to me, well done. I'm proud of you. And that's the yacht. I was a spoiled brat. I was sort of kicked out of my home with my families, and was now in the care of people that I didn't know, and I missed my parents. I was always very homesick. But the Baum family was such nice, warm, caring Jewish family that really made me feel as if I was one of their children, and treated me as such. So my sense of, I wouldn't call it loneliness, but the feeling of not having my own parents around was not anymore that strong. And therefore, it made my stay there not only better, but it was, from what I can remember, a very happy life. And the thing I do remember is a cantor Baum sitting behind the piano, practicing some of the melodies that he would sing in temple. But he also played Chopin, he played Schubert, he played classical music to us. I remember sitting around the piano and the whole family singing songs to his accompaniment of the piano. As I said before, it was a very close family, a very warm family. When I think about it, it was a delight to be a member, to be accepted as a member of the family. To school, there were no school buses, you walked. We passed two synagogues. Both synagogues were in flames. The flames were shooting out the windows, out of the doors, and whatever they could carry out, get the Torahs, the prayer books, they would put in the middle of the street and put them on fire also. And people that were watching this were cheering them on. You know, kill the Jews, kill the Jews. It was terrible, but we were only 12 years old at the time. We didn't know what was going on. So we went to school, we came to the school, and the school was burning. Now, what do you think my feelings were when I saw that school burn? What do you think, how I felt?
Happy.
Yes, you got it.
You were happy that you
Boy, was I happy. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Can you imagine the school? No school next day, no homework, no teachers. It was great. Well, then we walked back home, but figured let's see what we could do during the day and play. And we got home to where I was boarded with this nice couple.
Every survivor's story must be told. Every survivor story is important. They are not only speaking for themselves, having survived the Holocaust, but they are speaking for those that did not survive the Holocaust. There is no substitute for an eyewitness, a survivor telling their own story. There's no substitute for that. So when I take survivors to schools, the impact it has on the kids, there's no substitution for it. You know, hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. You know, it's like living history. It's like if you got to sit down with George Washington or Rosa Parks and they tell you their own story. There's nothing that can replace that. So, you know, to hear the kids, you know, when they hear a survivor speak, you can hear a pin drop because they want to learn. They can't, you know, it's so unimaginable to them, and yet it happened.
I couldn't understand what was going on. And I saw people being marched through the streets with what I called the SS, which were the black shirts and the brown shirts, leading them on, beating them. But they were young people, they were old people, bystanders that were on the sidewalks throwing rocks and whatever was handy at them and cheering the accompanying band of of SS and SR along and watching them being beaten. Some of them were bleeding. Some of them would be falling on the streets. We didn't realize that they were Jews. We had no idea who these people were. It was just a sight to behold, as if there was a parade of some sort going through the streets. The understanding of actually what happened, that came many, many years later, realizing that we were present, witnessing the cruelty, what people can do to other people. I called my home because I was worried. We couldn't understand what was happening. My mother, of course, was well aware of what was going on, and she assured me that she's going to send our car to Cologne to pick me up and take me back home. Of course, she never mentioned the fact that the evening before, the stormtroopers came to our house with drawn guns. When my mother opened the door, they said, "Is the Jew Hermann Behrend here?" And my mother almost fainted from fright when she saw these people with drawn guns at the door. And my father came out and said, "Yes, I am Hermann Behrend." And they took him, threw him in the local prison, in the local jail, where he stayed for, I think it was something like 2 days, until Gestapo picked not only him, but all the other Jews, which were rounded up at the same time, put them on the train, took them to Berlin, where they were then taken to the concentration camp Sachsenhausen, which was in the neighborhood of Berlin. And I ended up in a camp called Fort Eustis, Virginia. And there was a sign across Fort Eustis, Virginia. It was called the Intellectual Diversion Program. I didn't even know how to spell the word diversion. The first time I was thrown into a large room, I would estimate there had to be at least 800 to 1,000 PWs maybe in there. And what I was doing in there without a sidearm, with no protection whatsoever, is a miracle. It's a miracle. Here they sat, they looked at this little Jew boy, and I didn't have a nose like this right now. My nose looked as Jewish as a Jewish nose you would expect to look, and they knew exactly who they had in front of them. And here this kid telling them how to run Germany. I mean, to me it was like a big joke, but I was much too scared to even smile, because here I had all of these faces looking at me and probably thinking, I wish we could get this dirty Jew alone. We will show them how to govern a government. Well, anyhow, that's what we did.
At Fort Getty in the United States, German prisoners attend special classes to fit them for leadership in their own country. The Gestapo, they learn, is out, along with other fascist institutions, in the reconstruction of Germany. Histories and textbooks on democracy are studied under noted teachers like Colonel T.V. Smith, former congressman. Languages, government, finance, and public safety are part of the course, which was ordered by General Eisenhower. Several thousand Germans, all volunteers, will be taught here.
Sort of the crash courses in democracy, that was based at Fort Eustis, Virginia. That ran from very early January 1946 until April of 1946. So it's about a 4-month program in which they educated somewhere in the neighborhood of about 23 or 24,000 of handpicked German POWs. They did 6-day courses over the course of 4 months. And so they would bring through a selection of prisoners for 6 days, give them this crash course, move them on, bring in another group.
We worked for a person in Galapagos. This was really a wake-up to see what their thoughts were of the Americans, and certainly of the Jew boy that was teaching them. They were shocked and surprised that people in America did not have the same opinion about the Jews as them. The Jews were all the rich. Jews were in charge of leading government agencies. Jews were influencing the way the government was run to every extent.
Yeah, I could see why he would feel disheartened given some of the answers that he cites in there that he had read from the prisoners' responses. Again, particularly about Jewish roles, alleged Jewish roles in German misfortunes. Yeah, I think Fred's work and the work of the people that he worked with, I think was a noble one, and I think they probably had more impact than they may have been aware of at the time.
The realization how important it is to tell and to talk to people about the Holocaust, that came to me very late in life, really. I never even thought about it, to be honest with you, until I would say after my retirement and finishing my diary. And as I reread it, I said, this is something that young people should know, because otherwise in another 10 or 20 years it will be totally forgotten. Giving this talk to the kids in the class, which was the usual beginning of my talks, and when we got to the point that I mentioned Max Baum as the father, and him being the cantor in the Orthodox synagogue, the rabbi, the principal of the school, got very excited and very suddenly left the room. I thought I had said something maybe that was not right, and disappeared. And a very short while later came back holding a cell phone in his hand and saying to me, I've got somebody on the phone that wants to talk to you.
Your first name? Heinz.
Oh my God.
This is it. Okay, here
That's
he
him.
is.
That's
Here he
him.
is. Hold on. Talk loud because he's in a store.
Oh, okay, Heinz.
Heche.
Hello there. Is your sister's name, or was it Margot? I'm Fred. I'm Fritz. But I live with you and your parents. Well, we escaped to Cuba, came to the United States, and lived in New York. Until 12 years ago, when I lived over here. You gotta give me his phone number.
I'll get it to
I
you.
want to
Here.
call you at home. I wanna get together. You live where? I am now in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You're going where? I'll be in Florida for 4 months in Delray Beach, and I'll be lecturing there. Oh, in Deerfield. That's not far away from me. Oh, I've got to get together with you. I've got to get oh my God.
Here we are today.
Yeah.
What is your hopes for this meeting?
That he remembers some of the things that I forgot, and will remind me of the things that I forgot, so that I can picture better the times in which we lived when we were together. And I'm certainly interested to find out whatever I'm fascinated by the fact as to whatever happened to him, how he got out of Germany, where he lived, and what brought him back to the United States.
But the first question that I'm absolutely eager to find out is how and by what means was he able to leave Germany? I knew that he went to England. How did he get to England? From age 12 to age 91, there must be an awful lot of things that happened in his life. I want to be able to hear as much of that as I possibly can.
Oh my God, I don't believe this.
You don't need any today. Oh, come on.
As they say, Henry Baum, I presume. Hey, and how are you?
How are you? It's been a little while.
Well, only 80 years. I mean, who counts the years?
Minor detail. Take a seat. Relax.
I am. If I was any more relaxed, I would be lying down and sleeping.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And how are you? It's been a long time.
Yes, I would say it
I
is.
would say, well, you're a baby compared to me. You're 1 year younger.
Of course.
Well, I hope you look at me with respect since I'm so much older than you.
I give you the respect of old age.
Okay.
Hello.
This is my friend Nikki.
Yeah. Please. No.
Over here. Oh boy. All right. Now.
Can I do this?
Yeah.
Comfortable?
You comfortable?
I'm very comfortable.
Living.
I'm very. Oh, I even. 1 second. I didn't forget. I remember your home.
Yes, but you're
I
not
brought
eating
my old
anything.
yarmulke.
Wow, how old
Yeah.
is it?
80 years old.
Don't ask. Don't ask. Okay, I got lots of questions for you. To start out with,
Yes.
how did you get to England? In what manner did you get to England?
Kindertransport.
Whose Kindertransport was it?
The British government gave 10,000 visas to children under the age of 18 from Austria,
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia, and Germany.
How did
And they
I
went
ever?
to the schools,
Yeah.
and the schools chose children, and they sent pictures of those children to England, and then there were people in a committee who chose the pictures, and who was chosen went. My mother went to her uncle and asked him, shall I send the children away? Because my father was no longer there. He was already deported in October the 28th, I believe, to Poland. And so she asked him, shall we send the children away? And he said, absolutely yes. And she took me to the station, and she waved goodbye, and I was crying my eyes out for the next 5 days. And when we finally got out of Germany, where the Gestapo was on the trains, and we saw in Holland people standing in line in front of the train handing out cocoa and cookies. And there was, we entered the new world.
From Holland to England.
To Harwich,
Yeah.
to England, and there we were dispersed to wherever we were supposed to go.
You stayed with the family?
No, I was in a hostel in Brighton, 33 Terrace, something.
In a hostel? You mean you were in the hostel until the day you left?
I was in the hostel until the day I quit.
You quit.
It was an orphanage. Orphanage for 27 boys. I had a good job there. Every Sunday I ironed 27 shirts and pressed 27 pants. And from there, at 14, when we had to leave school because that was the end of our education, nobody paid for the further grammar schools, we were apprenticed to different places. And I didn't have much of a choice in it, but I was apprenticed to a fur place, to a furrier.
Right.
And that's the trade I learned there. When did you
We
leave?
escaped, basically. What is
Yeah,
it?
I figured that.
My father was in a concentration camp.
Yes.
He was in Sachsenhausen. You could get out of a concentration camp if you could prove that within a period of 2 weeks you would leave the country.
Yes.
So he got off out.
Excuse me for asking, did you need a visa to get there or just your passport?
That's a story in itself. Okay, how did we get to the United States? The only way you could come here is 2 ways. Either you had an affidavit,
Right.
which was that somebody
Has
said
to
that we are going
guarantee
to
you-
take care of you.
Has to guarantee you
You're
that.
not going to be a burden to the country. And the other way that you could come to the States, if you deposited for each person
Certain amount of money.
$7,500 into a U.S. bank, that was your guarantee that you would not become a burden to the country.
Yes. Yes.
There were 12 of us. The only 12 survivors, all the others got killed. And we all went at the same time on the same boat
Which
to
boat?
Cuba.
Remember?
It was, yes, of course,
Yeah, Iberia.
Iberia.
Who deposited the money for
My
you?
uncle.
Oh, it's good.
Figuring at today's rate, it was almost $1 million.
Probably close to it. Yes.
Very close to it. So because there were 12 of us at $7,500, it was a huge sum.
Yes.
And then he deposited another $6,000 into a bank in Cuba so that all of us would have money to live on. And we stayed in Cuba a year and a half until we were allowed
When
it.
was that?
1939, 1940.
When did you come to Detroit?
To Cologne, I was 10 years old. I was only with you about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years.
But you left every weekend to go to.
I
your
did
house.
not. They didn't pick me up. They left me with you.
Did they?
No, I always, whenever they picked me up, it was once every month maybe. I never wanted to. I wanted to go back with my father. The one thing, I have very little memory of your parents, but there's one thing which I still is as clear in my mind as it was when I must have seen it. Was on Friday, was your mother. She rolled the dough on the table. It used to be about this wide and this long, and she didn't curse that it fell apart or anything like that, but she had lots of trouble with rolling it thin, and then with a knife she cut it so that we had noodles. Yeah, we had noodles for the chicken soup. Funny, but that's the one thing that I remember. Other than that,
And guess what? My girls roll it.
really,
And we make
I
it
think
good
that's
up,
great.
all of them. And they all nibble it before Pesach.
I think that's really great.
Sure we do.
When I got out of the army, I couldn't go to college. I said, I have to learn. My father said, you got to learn a trade. I went to a school by the name of RCA Institute. Today, RCA is a very famous name. At that time, it wasn't that well known, and I learned electronics. And there was no television yet, but radio and record players and all of these things. So I learned electronics, and then television came about, and I went back once more for a course, learned television, became a television mechanic. And I was fabulous. I was just about the best television mechanic you could find in all of New York. And my fame spread to such a point that even Margot Monk heard of me, and I get a telephone call one day. My name is Margot Monk. You came so highly recommended that you are such a magician as fixing televisions. Could you maybe come and take a look at my sick one? I said, of course, it would be my pleasure. We made a date, went up there, and 1, 2, 3, I fixed the television. Of course, you got paid about $2 for a service call, which was a lot of money even then. But how could you leave that quickly when they get the $2 and then run? You had to put on a show at least. You know, in those days to fix the television, They had tubes, something like a light bulb, and if the tube wasn't lit, well, you know, that was the trouble. So what you did, you took that tube out of the TV, you opened up the box of tubes, put another one in, and it was done. But you can't do that so quickly. You got to put on a show. You got to say, oh boy, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. This is really a difficult case. I mean, you had to put on a show. And after everything was fixed and done, and you presented her with the bill, she says, Mr. Behrend, you have an accent. Tell me, where do you come from? I said, well, I come from Germany. She says, well, I come from Germany too. Well, where from Germany are you? I said, no, you've never heard of the city. It's a small city. But she says, try me. I said, well, I come from a city by the name of Lüdenscheid. She says to me, you know, this may surprise you, but I've heard and I know of a city by the name of Lüdenscheid. I said, how could you ever know a city by that name? She says to me, long, long ago, years ago, there was a father who brought his son to my family in order to be able to go to a school in Cologne. And he came from Lüdenscheid. So I asked her, by any chance, is your first name Margot? She says, yes, it is. I said, I'm that boy. I inquired about his parents from Margot, but she did not talk much about them. No. Probably tried to forget what happened to them. I mean,
I don't know whether we tried to forget what happened. It's just a question that we didn't know what happened.
Well, yeah.
The only thing that we knew is that from Wrocławek they were taken to Warsaw, and Nowolipki was the main street. They must have lived there. Nobody could ever find, even though I have a number, nobody could ever find out where they lived or how they lived. And the reason I keep thinking about that in my mind is because my father was a chazan. How do you earn a living in Warsaw, in the ghetto, doing that?
Really?
You couldn't. You couldn't find anything. So they must have lived in a little winkle, in a little bedroom or separate thing in a place where they rented or whatever it is, because they surely didn't have any money to pay for anything. They died, to little that I knew about it, in 1944, just before the rescuing of the extermination camps.
Yeah.
They didn't make it.
Right.
It's mind-boggling what children forget or do forget or how they feel. It's, in retrospect, I should have done much more. In retrospect, I should have felt much more. But I don't know. But it just only begins to dawn on you as you grow up and as you have your children and you see your grandchildren, and then you look back and see, what did you do to try and help? Did you do anything? Is it your fault? Is it not your fault? Did you think of anything? It goes through your mind, and I have no answers.
What you could have done as a child?
Maybe get somebody to give an affidavit. Remember something, my parents were queer. They finally got a number, which was an emigration number. They could go out. They finally got it. Polish Jews did not get many visas to go out. They did go. They did have one, and they means that they had a job. My father got a job in Buffalo, New York. By the name of an affidavit was given by the name of Rosenberg through the Agudas Israel, I believe, today. And they were ready to leave, and one signature on my mother's affidavit was missing. They had to send it back to America to get the signature of some, I won't call him a flunky, but whatever it is, to make that legal. My father gave his ticket to leave Poland and the ship through the Baltic He refused to leave by himself. He wouldn't leave my mother behind. He gave his ticket to my uncle, my mother's brother, who came to America, and he stayed there and went from there to the Warsaw Ghetto. And then whatever. One signature.
You know, this may surprise you. In my early years, I went to temple on the holidays, but other than that, I was.
Shall we say freedom?
But now on Shabbos I go to, every Shabbos I'm in temple, not out of religious reasons, but I feel very comfortable there. I feel at peace with myself.
Whichever way you define what is religious or
Yeah.
not, doesn't make a difference, but you are there.
I'm there, and people always ask me if I'm in a temple where I don't belong, or where at a different temple, and I say I get up for Kaddish. People ask me, so who are you saying Kaddish for? I says I'm not saying Kaddish, basically for any family member. I say I get up for Kaddish every time it is said in the temple, because I say Kaddish for the 6 million Jews who may not have anybody to say Kaddish for them. But I'm so happy with my children that they still keep a little bit, at least, of their Judaism. And they are teaching their children also.
Very nice.
So this is.
How many children?
Well, I have 2. They're all pains in the ass, but you know, when they grow up, they are. But we'll love them anyhow, right? And I have now I got 3 grandchildren.
Lovely.
3 grandchildren.
That is lovely.
So what can I tell you? Well, I look at you. You have 3 of your own.
6.
6 of your own. I don't think they're going to be able to eliminate the Jewish race at that rate.
That's every time when there is a wedding or when I speak, you say Hitler did not win.
No, he certainly did.
And he did not succeed.
You can't live your whole life in anger. There is too much love, too much encouragement, too much living. If you were to spend your whole life in anger, there's no point in living. But when we look at the greatness of what the Rebbeinu Shalom, what God has given us, why should we go down on the side of pessimism? It's the greatest optimistic lives that we look around and see that when we look at our children, when we look at our grandchildren, we look at our great-grandchildren, and everybody follows the tenets of that. We learned at home, we tried to give over, and they continued it. And all of them have. Thank God, every one of them. So why should I look at being a pessimist if everything looks that great?
Is there any last questions you want to ask of each other?
Yeah, when are we going to see each other again?
I hope soon.
I hope so too.